This is one we reported on a couple of years ago. The Diocese of Buffalo, New York, was trying to close down a church, a very ancient church, a very old, well, from American standards, ancient. I love our Europeans laugh when we say it. Ancient. That's modern times, 19th century. But for America, an old church, St. Anne's Church, and there was a group of Catholics who were really wanting to preserve it for its value, to preserve it as a Catholic church, as a Catholic sanctuary. And they had been undertaking efforts for years, raising money, and basically they had a success. The diocese tried to shut it down and sell it for non-Catholic purposes, and the Vatican said, no, you can't do that. The Congregation for Clergy said, no good reason to close this church. It's got to stay open. So people celebrated. They appealed that decision that happened. The first decision was under Pope Benedict, then under Pope Francis's reign. They appealed it, and the Vatican said, "Up, change our mind." The Apostolic Signatura said, "Yeah, go ahead, close it down." The group they went back to the diocese. We'll pay for it. The diocese, according to the group, essentially made such demands that even our Lord Himself would find it impossible to meet all their demands. Was one of their spokesmen said. Essentially, they wanted all of the money up front. The group said, "Look, we've raised this much. Here's our plan to get more." They made such sort of extreme demands that the diocese clearly just did not want to transfer the church to them. They were going to take it over and take care of it. It's a beautiful, you can see old Gothic styles of church. And as an article in LifeSite News pointed out, the problem with this church is the diocese doesn't want it because it's the old ecclesiology. It is built for the traditional Latin mass. I mean, if you just look at this church was not built for guitar masses and kumbaya sessions. It was built for traditional Latin mass, and they don't want to be reminded of that. And I think LifeSite's commentary on that is certainly true. They'd rather see it closed, but not just closed. Here's what they're doing with it. They are selling it for $250,000 to the Muslims. And the property is going to be turned into, first of all, a mosque. So this place that has seen for over 100 years the holy sacrifice of the Mass will now have false pagan, essentially, worship as it gets transformed into a mosque. But there really is an extensive property beyond this. There's the rectory, the school buildings, and they're going to turn it into really an entire one of the largest Islamic centers in the country. They're going to have a school and community education center and a whole lot of other facilities. Um, but at the heart of it, where the church stands, will now be a mosque. Again, reminds me of that line we've spoken of before, St. Thomas More to Richard Rich. What does it profit a man to uh, gain the whole world to lose his soul? And he says to Richard Rich, for the whole world, but Richard, for Wales, right? Here are for $250,000. Really? You're going to sell out the Catholic heritage and have this beautiful Catholic sanctuary become a seat of false worship. And remember, this is the same diocese that would not sell buildings to the Society of St. Pius X, for example, who attempted to buy church in Buffalo, completely refused. So traditional Latin Mass group, no. You want to have a mosque? You can have it for $250,000. Again, a fraction of the value of this extensive. The plans that the Muslims have shown. I mean, incredible amount of square footage. Really, really a sad day, and a sad day for those in Buffalo. And I think they're basically mostly Novus Ordo parishioners. But I hope this shows you that these are shepherds that are hirelings, and they are not looking out for your spiritual well-being. And as sad as this church go, why don't you come back to the church, to the mass that this church was built for, even though they have sold out this building from under you. Before we go, a footnote, I think, on this story, as churches are being turned into mosques, again, art, that beautiful art, that architecture being misused. Another sad story. This time I saw it in Breitbart of a desecration, really, of an image, and we got very worked up about the Olympics having a sort of very insulting and blasphemous image, but now Catholic priests are doing it themselves. This is an original piece of air quotes art by a William Hart McNichols, who is a openly admitted homosexual priest, and he has painted this new image for um, the outreach conference run by Slim Jim Martin, sometime Jesuit. And again, aside from this just being bad art, I mean, from an objective point, this looks like a kiddie drawing, to be honest. It is Pope Francis kissing really what I think is a blasphemous image is supposed to be our Lord, some hippie with jeans on, sitting there with this sort of, DEI collection behind him. Again, I think maybe not quite as bad as the Olympics, but certainly equivalent, I think, in its outrageousness. So, as beautiful Catholic sanctuaries are being turned into mosques, this is what the new church is producing and calling art. It's really, really a shame.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. There's even another example today, even. If you look on we posted this on our Facebook and Twitter. Uh, if you go on the Vatican News website and see what their picture, their featured picture for the Assumption is, it's a piece of so-called art by who else but Father Rupnik. Even after these whole things we've talked about, the controversy surrounding it, that's the image they wanna show. And I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say about the this tragic story of turning this church into a mosque outside of, well, where is the outrage? It shows how far the culture has fallen, where we have the Mohammedans have they've occupied our churches, our most sacred holy places, and they didn't even have to fight a war for it. We gave it to them. 250,000 is practically nothing. And I will say, I don't have any proven facts on this, but this has been happening many times before. Many times we see this fire selling of church property and not wanting to retain the church property to pay off abuse victims. They just want as much money as they can in order to make as many cash payments as quickly as possible. So the whole situation is very tragic. It shows the death of Christian culture in the West, and what's replacing it is this Mohammedan culture that has invaded us. So devastating, but in a way to be expected.
And again, as you said, I understood. Not even invaded us. They didn't have to invade. We handed them the keys. I mean, it's really just outrage.